Okay, looking good. And okay, going live now. So we are live now. So I'm here on Facebook going the amazing Zoom interview with Dane Tomas. Hey, Dane, so thanks for joining me on the line.
Hey, happy to.
Happy to. So where in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in my house at Byron Bay at the moment.
Yeah, pretty warm?
It's pretty warm. It's regular.
And are you near the fires and all the things that are happening, or is that a little pocket out of the way?
The fires are not super far away, like 20 k's away maybe. So a lot of areas around here have been burnt. I've been out to some burnt areas, and a couple of weeks ago we went on a little mission across country and went through a whole bunch of burnt areas. So I've seen a bit of it, but it's not on my doorstep, but it's pretty near. We can see the smoke from my balcony.
Yeah. It's something like, I feel like I've been in a bubble up here on the coast. Like it hasn't been quite so connected to us on the Gold Coast, but I'm noticing the more I can be connected to where and how and people are being impacted. It's just, it is sort of threading through so many people. And an interesting way to end a decade.
Yeah.
Country on fire.
Sure.
Definitely
brought a more reflective end to the year for us. You know, we did a little temple space, which I'm sitting in right now, for the end of the year, which was much more about the astrological stuff going on, and much more about wrapping up the year than it was about like, yay, party. It was much more like descent, you know, into the underworld and kind of reflection kind of a thing.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about the astrological, what's happening?
Yeah, well, it's not my full mastery, although I'm learning a lot more about astrology over time. But my partner, Mia, is doing a bunch. She does these dark oracle reading things. And the big themes that I've been hearing lots about is about Saturn and Pluto coming together, which if you think of Saturn as the disciplinarian, the structure, almost like the patriarchy, the system, you know, and it's about discipline and organization and the old order. And then Pluto is kind of about death, the underworld, destruction, Dionysus kind of energy. So it's this deep, dark destruction kind of energy. So we've got coming together the kind of the order and the discipline and the way things need to be done, and then this destruction heavy energy, and they're kind of mixing together. So yeah, I mean, if you look at like what the fires are about in Australia, you know, there's politically and socially there's a big questioning of the hierarchy and the order, and the leadership being brought into severe question and that kind of thing. And you know, for me, there's been this piece around, there's this old school personal development model of setting goals and achieving them. Does that really fucking matter in 2020? Do I really want to live by that anymore and stuff like that? So that's kind of how I've been into. I mean, you can interpret stuff a lot of different ways. That's what the archetypal stuff is so good for, but that's how I've been thinking about it. It's like, what parts of my structure and organization do I want to keep, and what parts do I want to destroy? And, you know, what parts, because I'm dealing with wealth and stuff a lot, you know, what parts of the capitalist system am I cool with, and which parts would I change or do away with or make a difference to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What conclusions have you got so far?
I really to fuck off a lot of the goal setting, planning stuff that I've been doing for the last 20 years. Like I've been deep into that sort of method of living for probably, like about 20 years, almost exactly. And I decided to drop a lot of that and come more from a void, being present in the moment and dropping things space, and just see what continually keeps arising. So usually every year I have these fixed goals that I chip away at. And this year I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that shit. Like there are energies, there are things that are my passions that are there, that they're happening. It's not like I'm not gonna grow or do anything, but this kind of idea, I put a mark on the calendar and everything becomes about getting towards that mark on the calendar. And when you get there, you'll finally have something. It's like I'm really dropping that and moving more into a be the thing now, drop into beingness and into the moment, and then vibrate the new reality in this moment. So if you want to be rich now. If you want to be strong, vibrate the energy of strength in your body as a reality in this current moment. And then the results will come as a side effect. And particularly what I find is when I'm coming from being, I didn't really give a fuck about the results. It's like I'm already I already have the benefits, and the results are just like a trail of side effects. And, that's a very different approach to this subtly scarce approach of like, when I finally hit my goal, then I'll be there, and it's like, that's half of what's wrong with our species and our planet, is like projecting out the things that we think if we do them we'll be better, and it's like, it's living a lot in illusion,
Yeah. It sounds like it's kind of changing the linearity of the creation too.
Yeah, it's like the linear aspect is a mind game. It's not really real, it's a trick. It's a sort of mental trick that we can create massive shift instantly if we shift our vibration and shift our reality right now. And in fact, the only time you can do it is right now, so it's kind of like this sort of almost like a magical realization or a metaphysical realization I sort of feel like I knew it on paper as a theory, but something shifted in my body subtly of like, I am just participating in this fucking chase energy that the rest of the world is doing, that is completely unconscious. And even whether we're in the conscious business world or whatever, it's still the same. People are still trying to get somewhere. And it's like, fuck, you're not it now.
It's like one of those, what do you call them, distraction domination patterns that's so everywhere that no one notices it.
Yeah, because the mind itself is a scarcity based structure, so it's always looking to complete its incompleteness and creating solutions to problems that if you just fucking settle down and relax, aren't even there in the first place. So that's come into my world in a big way in the last, what are we now, 4th, 5th day of the year, whatever. I don't even know what day it is.
We're on day 4. I saw there's a few comments about the time. I think it was a confusing time because we said it was 2:00 Queensland, 3:00 New South Wales, and it was the 4th. So it was 2, 3, 4. So if you guys got the time mixed up, I'm sorry, or there was a lack of clarity, but it's a numerical sequence in that. So thanks for the comments, and I'm grateful you guys got to jump on. So this interview is really about doing a bit of a reflection of where we come and where we headed. But before we dive into that, tell us a bit about Dane Tomas. Who is this creature? And particularly for those that haven't met you yet.
Look, it's such a fucking difficult question, in a way. Like, I can tell you my dominant interests, the dominant theme that I've been interested in have been entrepreneurship, the awakening of consciousness, getting deeper into embodiment, magic, and we can go into what the hell that even means, and sort of synthesizing these all together. And tantric philosophy and conscious sexuality have also been big parts of my journey. So I have been deep into most of these interests for a long time, like 20 plus. What am I, 42 this year? So probably since 15, 16, some of those interests started to really become part of my life. And business wise, creative business wise, I've had a few successes, written 5 books about various subjects, personal development and conscious business and sexuality sort of subjects. I created a process called the Spiral back in 2012, which a couple thousand people have done by now. We've trained 125 practitioners. We'll have 200 by the end of this year. That's one of the things I've been known for. Before that, I was a rapper. I used to battle rap and compete under the name Dragonfly all the way back in from the year 2000 to about I was going to say till the year 3000, but till about 2008, I did that. And I've been very active on social media since about 20. Well, I started using MySpace in like fucking 2010, would it be? No, before that, like 2008. So I've had a lot of time on social media. Yeah, back when it was a thing, and it was, which meant when Facebook came out properly, I just understood it because I'd already been making up characters and selling T-shirts and shit like that on MySpace back in the day. 2004, that's when that was happening. So I already had a bit of a grasp of social media and digital media and stuff. So I don't know, like I think of myself as an esoteric entrepreneur, I guess is the best attempt at lumping all these strange things together that I've gotten. And I spent the last couple of years traveling around the world, doing a lot of retreats and ritualistic initiations, and going to places like Egypt and to a mystery school in New Zealand, and gone deep with ISTA, International School of Temple Arts. I teach Tantra with Tantra is Love in Melbourne. And I have done a lot of retreats and online courses under my own brand, just under Dane Tomas. So I got my finger in a lot of pots, but it all comes down to usually some sort of conscious take on entrepreneurship or personal development or healing or magic or sexuality. Those kind of things are what I am pretty obsessed with.
Yep. And I can see this is why I was really drawn to the invitation to call you onto this interview, and definitely to invite you to speak. We have the Awaken event we're running on next Saturday, and Dane's going to join us on stage there too, which is similar kind of topics and conversations about where is the world going and what are we becoming and what the fuck is changing in our consciousness is kind of the question that drives me. But you mentioned magic. Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
What is this magic thing?
Magic to me, like I grew up obsessed with people like Aleister Crowley, who, for those who don't know about him, look him up. He was like the end of the Victorian era, like a magical practitioner and social renegade who has a massive impact on popular culture. And his definition of magic was basically changing reality in accordance with your will, so basically making stuff happen. And it's been interesting the last couple of years, lots of people coming out and claiming like I'm a witch or I'm at such, this kind of thing has become kind of cool, which is really interesting because obviously for a long time it was not cool, it wasn't okay, it was weird. You said that in the 80s, you're kind of a weirdo. But to me, one part of it is about manifesting the reality that you want, and then another part of it is really using things like ritual and ceremony to integrate myself with the bigger self. So utilizing an initiation path to become more one with reality, more one with the universe. And you could even, you can muck around with these terms, but to me, black magic is basically the pursuit of personal power, and white magic is the pursuit of liberation / unity with the oneness, and so I don't have the connotation of good or evil around those. Just like one is I'm out to get stuff for my small self. I want to manifest a car, so from that point of view, your vision board is black magic. It's like you're trying to manifest. It's not evil, but it's definitely self. It's definitely for the ego self, right? Yeah. And then
it's kind of pulling it in. It's pulling it in to yourself. Construct. Yeah.
Versus the higher path will be realizing that the self construct doesn't even fucking exist, and you're an expression of the universe with that is life force flowing through it, and the usage of ritual and occult knowledge to become one with the everything, you know. So and it's, you could not use this language and be totally into those things as well, but I got into those things as a teenager, and then everything else I studied, from things like personal development and NLP, which is what I was big into in the early 2000s, or to like more like the yogic and meditative pathway, which has become bigger over the last, I mean, I found it a long time ago, but I've become a lot more serious about that now, or plant medicine, or doing kind of rituals, or even the tantric temple stuff. All of that for me has fitted really nicely into a magical framework, because I already had this language and already had these ideas of like, why would we do this thing? Why are we doing this ritual on the solstice? Well, we're trying to achieve such and such. So that's how I look at it. And, you know, but I even feed it into the mundane world. So like business and sales and marketing to me are magical acts. You know, if I write a piece of sales copy, I'm putting my intention of what I want to happen, and I'm reaching out to influence other people. And when I really got that down, it's like, boom, I wrote this thing and we just made $100,000 from one piece of writing. That's interesting. But I could feel, well, I fucking really put the intention in that one. It was really reaching through the screen and like, you know, touching people, and I'm basically saying in the copy what's going to happen and making that happen. And same with art and media creation, you know, it's shaping reality. Like everyone goes and watches the Joker Batman movie or whatever. It's embedding a version of reality into the minds of millions of people, you know. So it's creativity as well as a big part of it.
Probably not a simple answer, but something like the copy, like that, would you say that's more black or white?
That's black magic, if you want to use the definitions. But you know, it's in service, and I'm just kind of, I am aware people aren't going to have these definitions. They're going to think black magic is putting a curse on your neighbor or whatever, you know. But to me,
well,
you know,
it felt quite like more like an exchange, sort of like it was a two-way street exchange. When you sort of said it, as I was trying to feel it out.
The white is like, you know, the product and what I'm doing is designed to serve humanity. And the black is like, oh, I just made $100,000. Great. You know, that's me. That's my, but then again, that $100,000 is going to go towards investing in things that are going to serve others. So it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. And it comes down to this piece that really, if we have a non-dual philosophy, there is no black and white, you know, there is no left and right. There is no masculine and feminine. There is no up and down. It's just all the same fucking thing, you know? So that's why I'm so drawn to play with duality. And like, you know, you can hold a super triggering position on social media, and that position will trigger everyone who's opposite to that. But actually the truth is going to be a combination of both of those positions is going to lead to a higher truth, you know? So black and white, knowing that there is no black and white, you know?
We just call them that so we can describe the range of space between them.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's like the human mind seems to function on duality. Like, what is hot if there's no cold? It's really hot here. It's like, well, you grew up in fucking Iceland. Of course you think it's hot here, you know? He grew up in Africa. He thinks it's cold here. It's like, we the brain likes to have relative positions so it can, you know where it is. But if we start to dissolve that stuff, you know, we're going into like if Joe Dispenza's language is the quantum field, you know, there's no conditions. It's like, I'm dissolving my body. I'm dissolving the story of who I am. I'm dissolving everything. There's nothing, you know, it's only when we emerge back into the dual realm, it's like, oh, I'm not comfortable. That's bad. Oh, but I'm going to go over here. That would be good. It's like this comparative polarizing that we use to understand life, I guess. And it's a survival piece as well. You know, the way I look at it is the organism that we're in, you know, the biology that we live in shapes a lot of this stuff. You know, we have eyes, so everything is visual metaphors. You know, if we didn't have eyes, if we were some kind of conscious sea slug creatures and we could speak, our language would be so different, because we wouldn't have all this language that is based on visualizing, and like we wouldn't have metaphors that are like based on having a spine. You know, wouldn't if we're all slug people, we wouldn't say he's a stand-up guy with a lot of integrity, because that's a spine-based
70
metaphor.
words for sand.
Yeah, it'll be just different. It'll be, maybe we'd have some real somatic fucking feeling based language, and we wouldn't have so many structures, you know. So it's like I just try to sometimes pull myself out of the fact that the body that I'm in, the mindset that I'm in, the conditioning that I had, you know, the where I grew up, when I grew up, has shaped everything. And it's so easy to run through life thinking that's all true, and that's all really, really conditional.
Yeah. For me, I guess where I keep coming back to is how can I enjoy the experience of diversity without really attaching into right and wrongness of it, and just have a flow within that. But I really love that perspective of putting on like a different, maybe not quite the sea slug hat, but like the deconstructing some of the really profound assumptions about that shape how we perceive it, reality.
Totally. It's like, you know, can you be an environmental advocate one day and be like a property developer the next day, and fucking sit in those and feel that they're both true, and they both have benefits, and they both have drawbacks, you know, and actually they're two sides of the same coin on some level, you know.
Yeah. And I guess at one level, that's what our collective is doing. It is working to integrate all of those polarities into a more of a harmonious who are we sort of story. Yeah.
Yes. Which when you have these groups or these individuals that are epically polarized with each other, you know, it's like, and when you can step back from it, and it's like, oh, these motherfuckers need each other. They're playing out, you know. It's like the victim and the bully. They're holding point for half of reality, you know, and they're going to keep repeating it until one of them can crack out to encompass all of it, you know, until the bully can reconcile his victim past, he's going to be a bully. Until the victim can recognize they're a bully and an aggressor in other ways, they're going to stay a victim, you know. And it's like, it's a really, and which if you try to explain this to someone who's locked in that pattern, they'll probably be very offended, because it's very, very real when you identify it. But when you can step back and you can work archetypally or energetically or shamanically, you can, you know, I've been in lots of situations where we will play out the roles in a sort of some sort of situation, you know, and then you switch and it's like, fuck, I've been bullying this other person in a subtle way, or I've been bullying someone else, but I've always thought I was the victim. But fuck, they're both true. And then it kind of collapses, and the frequency underlying it is as good as a word that I can find for it is it's love. You know, like the underlying frequency is love, and the polarities are what pull us out of seeing love, basically, or seeing the oneness of the situation.
There's like 3 questions at once, but I'm going to come back to the scripture questions just so we actually start with those. This has been awesome. So the first section is we're going to look back a bit through the last decade, the last year. And the first bit is, what did you love most about 2019?
It's an interesting question, you know, because a lot of cool shit happened in 2019, and I kind of got a little burned out and just figured out I needed to get a base. I've been nomadic for about 18 months by about July, you know, and I was like, fuck. I think when I did the Conscious Leaders Talk, you know, I was coming back, and I couldn't even come back yet because I had to go away and do something else in Bali and then come back. But I had been coming to the conclusion I needed a base, and I'd been doing this nomad thing for 18 months and been all over the planet. And, you know, I think what I'm great, and it's funny because like 2018 didn't really have a punctuated ending. It just blurred into 2019 for me. So what I'm grateful about for that last section is the epic expansion of my worldview that happened, you know, like from I was in Israel, Egypt, Germany, New Zealand, you know, multiple trips all around Australia, but mainly the cities in Australia, but a little bit of bush time as well. And just got to really expand out. You know, I got to hit a place where my businesses were doing okay and they could run to a degree without me. So I was like, and also I started to not give a fuck if they fell apart either. I was just like, well, I have this impulse to just follow this thing that's opened up. And I went in a lot deeper with ISTA for one. They did a bunch of their trainings and started getting pulled into the center of that community and that organism. They never call it an organization. It's like an organism. It's a loose collective of, you know, however many people. And that started to wake me up and call me to disrupt things. And I kind of, in a way, turned my back on the coaching world. You know, I kind of blew that off. I was like, fuck, I'm so fucking done with in any way being identified as a coach. Or I was running like online masterminds and all that sort of stuff. And like by 2018, I was like, I'm fucking done with this shit, you know? And I was fortunate that the spiral, which is the bit that I still, I mean, I believed in all of it, but that's a piece of like, this is really important for the world, but I don't want to be like just stuck with being the teacher forever, you know? So those trainings could still run, even though I just went and did all this other stuff, which was awesome. And I just think I just got to expand so fucking much, like doing all these crazy rituals all over the world, having different relatings and relationships and ending up in a new relationship. And also just even taking the mystical stuff out of it, just the sheer amount of travel and new places and new people that I clocked over that 18 months was like staggering. And so to come back home, re-land back in the same place, so I'm back in Byron. I think this is where I feel at home. I kind of expanded to Gold Coast. Byron as a collective feels like home base on some level. You know, I feel grateful that I could have the privilege and the options to just, and it wasn't a plan either. I just got drawn into these exciting things, but to be able to do that and just get fucking expanded, you know, and I'd been on the business train a bit for the last few years before that, and to sort of switch into this more shamanic, tantric, mystical adventurer for a little while, that was pretty fucking cool. And then to come back and start going, okay, how do I integrate these two things, which can be quite difficult to integrate? You know, they can seem very opposing. I don't think they are, but they can. The way society deals with them is that. But I got to do that particular journey, and all the crazy shit that went down on that was really sometimes self-destructing, but ultimately quite nourishing and expansive as well.
Awesome. It sounds like it's been a heck of a journey, I suppose, that 18 months with all the travel.
Yeah.
Like similarly, last year finding my roots again, like it was huge to actually just settle and be still and let so many things land. Like so many parts had expanded, they just needed to land again. It's been huge. Next question. What are you grateful to have ended in the past decade?
Yeah, I think in the past decade, I mean, the past decade really was my business and personal development journey. You know, from my 30s to my 40s was really, I pushed creativity and music out of the way to go all in with like social media, running events, running workshops, building programs, all that stuff. And I went fucking hard with it, learned a lot of shit. And, you know, I'm not done with business. Like I think I'll be somehow involved in something entrepreneurial probably for the rest of my life, but it's at different levels. But I definitely, like I was saying, this personal development, coaching model kind of thing, that fucking died, you know. Like I think I was in like a bunch of fucking crazy rituals, and I came back and caught up with a digital marketer friend of mine who's also pretty spiritually switched on. He's like, bro, your business coach just didn't make it back home from that adventure. And I was like, yeah, I know, like fuck business coaching. Like, and it doesn't mean I don't want to even still help people in that thing. I still have this passion, particularly for spiritual and creative entrepreneurs, to help them level up. But thinking of myself as that just is not possible. It's just like, that was just a convenient label, so I didn't freak people out by saying I was a wizard. It's just like, oh, I'm a business coach, and it's like, if you only knew what I do,
business wizard.
Yeah, and even that, it's just like these labels are so restrictive, and I think we need them because we're afraid just to be the fullness of who we are, and I feel I have so much less of that fear now. So I'm grateful that died. Like I don't really give a fuck if people are confused or offended or don't really understand. That's now become humorous, whereas for a long time there's this angst of like, one day I'll have to get my elevator statement right, and it's like, don't worry about that shit. Just be the being that you are.
Just avoid elevators.
And yeah, exactly. Just don't. Magic carpets are much better. This idea that everything needs to be boiled down to some snippy little sound bite, and it's just like, that's so 80s, like I'm unlikely to be really handing out little business cards anytime soon. It's just like, it's just not required. Like it's a different way of operating. And so that model has died for me, that model of trying to be whatever, and I've got to train myself as an expert, or I've, all the little fucking 5-step hacks and 7-step hacks. It's just like, I now know in my being that like it's just about life force flowing, and that's all I need to worry about, is just reconnecting to myself continually and taking actions from there. And I don't have to play the game as it's laid out by anyone else. Like it's it's done.
For me, I think, there's a point in mastery too where your works and your creations speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And you can just lean on that. The labels are always going to be a limit. So
yeah.
Okay, next question. What do you think we learned as a collective last year?
I mean, who's what, the whole planet?
You can go where you like with it. I mean, maybe you don't know the whole planet. The humans maybe. I don't know.
Look, far be it for me to assume that anybody learned anything, I don't know if anyone personally is learning shit. I have a very core collective of people that I'm close with, that there is a movement kind of beyond personality into soul, there's and also even beyond soul into like black hole void oneness kind of identification. And it's not saying we all have become enlightened beings, but there is an embodied understanding happening amongst that little core, that we are a lot more than the body and the mind and the personality. And I'm fortunate to have an increasing network of people that are playing on these multiple aspects, and that we can do personality stuff, we can banter back and forth, but I know this person whose eyes I'm looking into knows that they are fucking more than their life story or their identity or whatever. And even beyond that, they know that they're more than like their soul, there's like, they are to some degree plugged into the current of life force itself, and the kind of rituals we're doing and the kind of hangouts we're having and the kind of network that we're playing in is reinforced in even the relating, like the open relating styles that are going on, and the different, even to a degree, the conscious business thing, although that can be arguably reinforcing personality, or it can be more going the other way. That's really young, I think, that piece. But all these different things that I'm involved in, there is a clear progression in my eyes of the people that are in these little networks that I'm really tight in, that is moving towards deeper, it's hard to use, even embodiment, self-responsibility, awakening, and also moving away from, here it is, individual selfishness, like I've got to get mine, I've got to survive, I've got to hit my ego goals, that is transcending to like, oh, we actually have to collectively create, you know, we have to, if we want to play bigger, if we want to, it's not even if we want to play bigger, but if we want to bring through more power and magic, it's about mastering co-creation. That's a big piece that came in for me mid 2018. Sorry, yeah, early mid 2018, but ripened last year, because and I also am fortunate to have more and more players that are able to play on that level where they're not, you know, like if we're running an event and there's 3 of us running it, the person who needs to speak speaks and the other 2 shut the fuck up, you know, and then when they're done they stop, and it's like, it's not based on taking turns or based on I want to go. It's just like, we both knew that he had the piece and he brought it, and then when it was completed he had enough awareness to shut the fuck up because there's nothing more that needs to be said, and then the next piece, and that has been cooking amongst my friends and collaborators, and I'm seeing it more and more becoming functional. So it's kind of like this group creativity thing is evolving, and it's still early days, but it's evolving.
It's like that underlying connectedness.
Yeah, so we're operating
it's
as
reaching up through us.
Yeah. So we're operating as a group soul, as a group energy, slightly more so than such and such is the boss. He's leading. We do what he says, which I'm still cool with hierarchical leadership too. Like when it works, I think it's fucking awesome. You know, I'm not an either or, but I'm seeing this collective movement thing starting to happen a little bit better.
The next question was around the most important leadership trend you saw rise in the last decade, but I'm imagining that's probably the similar answer to that one, because we've actually, this time has just flown. It's going amazingly, but I'm going to skip to the next question because I think that the last year, as you said, sort of seeing that connectedness in the leadership is probably the biggest leadership trend anyway. Okay, looking forward, what's new and exciting for you in 2020? What's
one for me is moving my identity more towards thinking like an investor than a business, than a creator of businesses. It's like, okay, that's one way I can leverage my creativity, is make businesses and execute ideas and all that sort of stuff. That's great, but I'm starting to look at property. I'm starting to look at investing in other people's businesses. I'm starting to educate myself on how to better read financials and how to track that kind of stuff, which for some people would sound so fucking boring, but for me it is like really exciting because I'm realizing like where I want to go and what I want to build. Just owning like 2 or 3 successful small businesses isn't anywhere near enough to fund or to fuel that. It's like those little things become the engine for the next thing, and that multiplies, and I'm starting to get those pieces landing of seeing how I'm going to do that, and having new people showing up that have things to teach me and I have things to teach them. So that's very exciting for me. It's funny, it's going to sound kind of fucked, but the environmental destruction piece on a level, I think, is going to catalyze some really significant awakening, and it's going to suck for a large amount of people. And I'm, you know, as a selfish individual, I hope that I'm not one of the people it sucks for, you know. But beyond that, I think these, you know, like the bushfires, whatever the fuck else is going to happen, I get this sense that this is the catalyzing factor to force some more evolution. And that might be really painful and ugly. It might be different for different people, different situations, but I'm interested to be alive through this time, you know, which doesn't mean I'm on a personal level celebrating bad things happening as such, but I just get a sense we need difficult things to happen and things that are breaking to break to produce the next level of whatever the fuck it is, you know, and I don't know how it's going to go exactly. And you know, I try not to get too much into the political stuff, but I also think a lot of shit is going to fucking fall apart in a lot of places in the next year or two. And I could be completely wrong. It could just be business as usual for another 50 years, you know, but the perception I have is that some structures are going to get cracked open and there's going to be some changes, and I'm curious and excited to be alive, to be alive, but also to be relatively well positioned. Like, I'm fully aware of my privilege and where I'm at in my life and the knowledge that I have and the resources that I have access to. It's like, you know, thankfully I'm not a factory worker in China or something right now. I can move around the planet at will. I can learn about anything I want to learn about, and I can connect with almost whoever I want to connect with. So I feel well positioned to participate in that change. And who knows? But I'm excited by change, even if it's going to look bad on the front end.
Yeah. You know, and it's something that I'm so grateful for too, is that we actually have so many leaders like yourself that have really reflected and sort of massaged these concepts and ideas through themselves. They're not taking it lightly around responsibility or the, you know, the use of wealth or power in this world, and that we, like, having platforms that you can bring those perspectives out, that as you see something that matters enough to speak up for, you have the space to do that, and to know that we are going to be looking for new leadership, for new perspectives on how to do the human, social, you know, connected thing, because as like it is falling apart. We're not seeing the results we would want of a harmonious, connected, you know, society. So it's on my gratitude list. Cool. Final stretch of questions. So you're 42, was it?
I'm 41 now. I'm 42 in June.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm similar age, but what I'd love to do is flip forward 10 years. So we're in 2030. And there's Dane at 51.
Yeah.
As you look out through those eyes, what's going on in the world?
Look, it's super tricky to really predict that shit, but I, you know, there's this Eckhart Tolle quote that always resonated with me, which is, he's talking about, what does he say? He says, paradoxically, things are getting better and worse at the same time, you know? And I have this sense, you know, I've had pictures of it in meditation and different things, that like, if things, you know, work out the way I imagine, that I'll be very global by then, and the world will have pockets of potential fucking absolute abundant paradise, and it's going to have pockets of fucking war-torn, fucked up scarcity, you know? And my personal aspiration is to have enough freedom to traverse through all of that, you know, to be skillful enough not to get caught up in any oppressive structure or self-destructive loop or anything like that that would permit me from having the full access to what's going on in the world, you know. So I see this potential of, like, you know, where we're heading with tech and where we're heading with consciousness, that can really be like, you know, 2030 could actually feel like a fucking 200 years in the future. You know, the amount of change that can happen in 10 years, I don't know that anyone is barely qualified to imagine, like, what's going to happen when driverless cars kick in, what's going to happen when VR kicks in, what's going to happen when shit I don't even know what it is kicks in, and not just all these things are going to kick in on top of each other, you know. And so the accelerating potential of that on wealth is like crazy, you know. Like, are we going to have like 12-year-old billionaires? We might have. who fucking, like, that might be the people who understand the play. I don't know. I'm just fucking jamming, you know, like we saw already, like, the Zuckerbergs and stuff becoming billionaires in their 20s, right? That was never a thing before. The wave before them was like the Bill Gateses and the whatever, and you go back and it was like the oil man and the whatever, and that shit took fucking decades to build, you know? You might have 12-year-old billionaires in the next 10 years. On what platforms, I don't even know, you know, but if children are the ones who intuitively understand them, that's who will master them. Like, basically, I'm just holding the intention to be flexible and awake and resourced enough to navigate whatever the world is like, because it could be completely fucking unrecognizable, you know?
For sure.
But I would like to be thriving in that reality, and I would like to be supporting and connected with others who are thriving in that reality, you know? And that's the big overarching piece for me. Yeah, it's pretty vague.
It's so good. I think in a lot of ways it's a lot more the energy that we step on or that moves through us that's going to call forward that sort of future than any specific individual's attachment to one outcome. Do you know what I mean? If you look at that connectedness of the shared story that's rising sort of through us, like there's somewhere in that pathway forward will be more in that collective service, I think, rather than any one person having such a rigid projection of the future that they push that intention out through everything. Anyway, personal side tangent. So as you're in the future looking back, what kind of questions have really been driving leaders? So maybe yourself or other leaders or the people that are stepping up for this new kind of custodianship and innovation in the world. Like, what kind of questions drive them?
Look, I think from my definition of leadership and people that I think who are embodying some degree of that, the questions are always around how can I most serve? You know, it's going to be around how can I most serve the planet or serve a certain subsection of people that I feel an affinity with is going to be one of the questions. You know, another version of the same thing is going to be what problems need solving, what problems need tackling. You know, that's what one of the things to me that leadership is about. It's and a third one, it's a kind of, they're all stacked together, you know, is what's possible, what could this be like, you know? Like it's not, this is how I think entrepreneurially. It's like, okay, what business am I in? Oh, I'm in the such and such business. Like, yeah, what business could we be in? You know, like you own a shopping mall, but you could be in the media business. You could be making TV shows, you know, like if your thinking is radical enough and your vision is big enough, that's how you would know to change direction. And it's like, so it's really around, what's possible, what needs to be done, what problems need to be tackled, where do my gifts and talents best kind of create value and contribute to the world. And, you know, I've noticed when I'm coming from there, things like making money is very easy, and it's not really, it's not even the primary factor. It becomes more of a secondary or tertiary factor. And when I get caught up, I'm more like, okay, how do we do like X amount a month? It's almost like the leadership and the contribution energy comes down a little bit because you're getting caught up in the what do I get? And, you know, most people that are struggling, even though they might struggle to admit it, they're more caught up on what do I get, you know? Even if it's like, how do I pay next month's rent? You know, it's like, well, you know, Elon Musk isn't worrying about that. And it's not because he's now really rich, it's because he was never fucking worrying about that. You know, it's someone who's obsessed with like, you know, there's a big fucking problem. What if we try to solve that? That'd be, and not because necessarily because they're such a good person either. It's not, doesn't have to be some Mother Teresa sort of projection. It could just be because, well, I'm interested in that problem. That problem is the one that fucking captivates my imagination, you know? And for me, it's so far has been problems around consciousness, you know, like Spiral was an attempt to help people break out of their conditioning, because I was kind of outraged that, you know, why should one person just be able to fucking, I don't know, be a famous actor and someone else who has the same desire and potentially the same talent just can't do it because of what they believe or how their body is conditioned with shame or fear or whatever. They're just not going to move. You can look at them and go, that guy's going to be really successful. That guy's going to struggle to stand up in front of a group of people, and it's going to be really hard to change it. Or that guy's going to be a millionaire. That guy doesn't really feel like he deserves it. And it's like, through no necessarily merits of their own. So it's this whole kind of personal development or capitalistic piece that we get what we deserve, but it's like, wow, that's half true, but it's also your conditioning set you up, and so I was like, well, how do we change that? How do we make it easier to unpack that conditioning and get rid of it? And Spiral particularly was an attempt that is somewhat successful at that unpacking that. And that problem was more my focus in, like, how do I make a 6-figure coaching business? It's like, fuck off, don't even worry. Like, who cares? Who really cares about that is not leading anything. That's just buying almost a retail packaged proposition. You only even know that you should do that because someone told you should do that,
It's like you've got pre-digested ideas.
Oh,
there's a book I was reading. It's like 0 to 1. I think it's by Peter Thiel. Yeah. Awesome. And I just love that concept, is that nearly every idea out there it's iterative. It's going from 1 to 2 to 3. It's taking material and ideas that are already there and just adding to it. And that's nearly every idea in creation. And the real art and science, if you put it that way, is to go from 0 to 1, to take something that has never been, it's never had a baseline, and bring it forward. And so for sure, for me, that's one of the real works of, and I think even that slug consciousness sort of metaphor is like, how do I deconstruct the limits on how I see and think of what's possible? How do I build different rules for how this reality can work? So keen for that. We have gone an hour and a bit, which has been awesome. So we'll wrap it up really soon. It's been such a pleasure, this conversation. I feel like we could go for another hour pretty easily on the future and creating realities. But we'll end with one final question, which is I had three come through and now they've all disappeared. The final question we'll go with is doing to me. Sorry, I do get a really auditory sense of things, and sometimes they speak over me, which I find a little bit distracting. So how do you, again, probably it's easier standing in the future and looking back, how did leadership change? Like, do we expect something different of our leaders, or is everyone becoming a leader? Like, how does leadership change in that concept? Because it's one I find really everyone's using it now.
Right. Well, it's a bit of a buzzword, and I think, I don't know, this is what's going to happen. This is what I kind of wish would happen, is that we stop projecting that energy and concept out onto others, and this might happen over another 100 years, I don't know, but people invariably complain about whichever prime minister or president or whatever mayor is in, right? But they tolerated for that person to be in. They weren't running, they didn't do anything about it, but they want to complain about, well, Scott Morrison isn't leading the country very well. It's like, well, you're one of the fucking idiots who has permitted this. And I don't mean they should have voted differently. I mean, as a collective, since forever, let's have a king. He'll know what to do. The man with the golden thing on his head and the sword, who's really good at killing people, that's who should, the king as an archetype, right, is really like an organizational principle. It's like, it's like what the heart is to the body. It's a central component that, if you put the king energy in a room, or the queen energy, if you like, but this is a sovereign, if you want to degenderify it, but this sovereign energy, it is essentially the energy of order, organization, leadership, service, prosperity, and to a degree, like balance. It's going to balance out factors. So it's archetypal principle. It can work in a small group to elect one person to embody that. If we've got a village of 70 people, fine, let's have a chief. Let's choose the person who is the most possessing of leadership qualities to represent that center for us, because then particularly if they are in touch with the group, they can make decisions that, on behalf of that group. If you do that with 20 million people, or you look at America, like 300 million people, it's never ever going to work. It could never ever work. So this function is broken, and to my mind, it's basically a symptom of how afraid people are to lead. So 99% of people are stuck in. I don't even want to say follower, because follower suggests that you have a good intuition and can go along with the plan. But actually, people are in paralysis, and their primary drives are like survival and belonging, right? And they're not particularly proactive about their lives. This is why so many people work jobs that they don't want to be in. They didn't fucking question they could just leave today. They're like, I can't, I've got to pay the rent. There's this, they're paralyzed by fear. And so from this place, everybody wants someone else to fix the problem, because it's scary. And besides, they've got to go to work to pay the rent for the house they don't own, for the whatever fucking bullshit life they've signed up for. I'm being quite critical in my languaging. Like I'm not shitting on everyone. I'm just saying we have, all of us, the leadership we deserve, always, and it's because we project and we deny our own inner tyrant. We deny our own corruption. Anything you want to put on your Trump or your ScoMo or your fucking whoever is you, And until people can own those shadows and reclaim that and step into their own leader, which requires being okay with being seen as good and bad, the moment you do that, half of the room is going to be not happy with the decision you make, It's like as soon as you get vocal on social media, someone's going to argue. Even if you write a post about world peace, someone's going to go, well, it's not realistic. I don't really agree, It doesn't matter what position you take. Someone's going to be in disagreement. And most people just can't fucking handle that enough to lead in any shape or form. So they would rather project. And that means they are basically living their life from a position of victim. This is a long rant. It was a good question. Basically, my desire, my hope for the human species is that we begin to break out of this pattern where we project our own limitations onto others, and therefore everyone will become a leader, and therefore everyone would create something different. And I don't mean the kind of hippie system where everyone sits in a circle and you enforce democracy. Well, now Jan's got to speak because she doesn't look okay. Well, we've got to hear everyone. It's not that. It's actually enough integration of our own leader, server, but also our fucking killer instinct, also a lot of our shadow, enough that we each can embody that, and we're not all needing to be heard, or we're not all needing to get our way, and we can actually lead from a place of service, which means sometimes shut the fuck up and let the person who knows the most speak about it, which basically, we don't really have any adults in our society. We have a lot of children. Myself, I'm not saying I've evolved past this either, but we have children that project their power and their fucking limitations onto others and expect their needs to be met. As long as we have that, it is impossible to have fully functional leadership, because no one can embody that. So why would it turn up for the collective? And it would be impossible to have a tyrant or a corrupt person running the show. We'd all owned our own tyranny and corruption, because what happens if you're a tyrant and everyone's integrated their tyrant? Well, they just come and fucking get you and throw you out. It's not, it's like,
there wouldn't be undercurrents to play that you would get in power in the first place. Yeah.
No.
I mean, even as you're speaking, there's this little bit of me, like, I've seen a lot of this questioning of like how are resources being used, and why weren't we prepared for disaster and crisis, and the government should have whatever. There's like at an individual level, how many people are prepared and have managed their resources to be ready for a crisis?
Yeah, not many. And it's the same with people want to complain about the economy, but they're personally in debt and they
Yeah.
personally can't meet their monthly expenses and they personally don't have any
Yeah.
savings. So it's like, why would you expect that your government, which is just a collection of administrators presiding over a fuckload of people, would be able to produce a better result than you have? You know, if you can't save, invest, manage your money, then how would you possibly, you know, even people who I want to change the economy. It's like, you can't even manage an economy of one. You're not qualified to do shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's very Jordan Peterson, tidy your room, you know? But there is a level of power in that, which is like, yeah, you want better leaders, become a better leader, and then you'll know how to use your voice and how to use your power. And if everyone did that, we would have a different society and we would function in a different way. And that's all I know about it. Which, you know, I don't vote, I don't even engage at all, because I'm just like, this is nonsense. This is nothing I trust. There's nothing I, you know, I don't resonate with it. My whole thing is like, I'm going to carve out a better world from what I do and lead in that way. And it's more efficient for me to focus on that than it is to get involved with something that, since I was very young, I was just like, this is just fucking bullshit. Like, why would you even, you know? And that's, a lot of people will not like that point of view, but that's just, it's very psychological and very archetypal. You know, it's this whole projection is perception, the world is a mirror of you kind of a framework, which is a very big part of my philosophy.
Amazing. I like it, and very similar resonance, I suppose, in how I perceive and engage with things, and probably never been that well articulated before. I'm really grateful for that. That was an amazing answers and just really opening up those concepts. And for sure, that's a huge piece of gold to actually guide the leadership through the generation, the decade to come. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Happy to be here.
Yep. How's the best way for people to find out more about what you do? Social stalking, or what's the
depending on your choose your poison. It is Dane Tomas TV on Instagram. I'm doing a lot of videos there. Dane Tomas TV on Facebook. Dane Tomas on LinkedIn. I'm just re-kicking off that and my kind of more businessy side of things. They're the main platforms. People who want to know about the spiral and stuff should read the book Clear Your Shit. It's on Amazon. It's like $3. They want to know businessy stuff, they should read the book The Conscious Hustle. If they want to come and do a spiral practitioner training, hit me up or go to the spiral website. And if people want conscious money education, I'm currently running a group on Facebook called Wealth Wizardry 101. It's only $100 US. You just join and I drop new videos every week. I'm not, you don't have to do booking for like meetings and shit like that. It's just like every week or other week, there's new content coming in there. And that's really all there is available right now. I do retreats and other things from time to time, but I'm kind of dropping off offerings at the moment just to focus on, I don't know, probably buying some churches or something like that, you know?
There's a solid plan. Plan. Damn it. Now I want to know what's the go with the churches.
I don't know. I just looked at one yesterday in South Australia for $100,000, and I was like talking to my friend who's a builder who lives down there, Tyron, shameless sex guy. I was like, bro, should we buy a church? He's like, look, it's pretty hot. It's a bit run down. I was like, yeah, but it's cheap. We could buy it. We could do it up. People come there. We made it really cool. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about. I don't know if I'll do that exact thing, but it's the
so there's the church, the land and building, and then there's the creating the legal structure of the church too.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, that's a black ops project. I don't want to talk about that, but there's a lot of ideas around how to bring like temple culture and tantric culture into the mainstream world.
Yep.
And that feels like a long-term project, you know, but that's kind of one of my bigger dreams, is to kind of like package and transmit kind of what I refer to as temple culture, which is a lot to do with sacred sexuality, embodiment, non-dual awareness, that kind of stuff. Like, how do we spread that is one of the bigger things I'm thinking about. And how does that align with my business goals and my wealth goals? And I think it's a big open-ended question, but that's the kind of stuff I daydream about. And it's the kind of stuff that I'm looking to move into the next decade. You know, that's the kind of stuff I want to be doing.
There's actually, I missed one question on my list, which was what projects are you working on over the next decade? And I just love
Yeah.
that it had to be spoken to and showed itself up in here anyway. So
Yeah,
awesome.
it's one of the, I've dropped a lot of things. Like I was saying, I'm less obsessing about this is my main project, but I'm just kind of creating space for those bigger ideas to come in, and that's where it's at.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Have an amazing weekend and a
Pleasure.
great start to the year. See you next weekend.
See you next weekend.
Sure thing. Thanks, Dane. Bye.